Good evening and welcome to the October 19th meeting of the City of Vista Planning Commission. Our first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll rise and join us, it'll be led by Commissioner Hastings.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Presby, roll call, please.
Commissioners are present with the exception of John Aguilera and John Savage.
Thank you. Commissioners, next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our September 7th meeting. Commissioner Aguilera and Commissioner Hastings were absent, so you should probably abstain from. So if there are no changes, can we hear a motion to approve? Commissioner Garrison.
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Looney seconds. Commissioner Hastings' machine is still not working tonight, so we will have to vote by hand. So all in favor of approving the minutes of September 2nd, cast your vote. And it passes unanimously with Commissioner Hastings abstaining because she was absent. Okay. Ms. Chow, any changes to our agenda tonight?
No changes tonight, Chairman.
All right, very good. Commissioner Hastings, since Commissioner Savage isn't here, you want to shift over? And I wish you could. Well, we'll have to. Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, that's true. Okay, we'll still have to vote by hand. Okay. All right. All right. Next item on our agenda is oral communications. This is time the commission sets aside for members of the public to address the commission on items that are not on our agenda. I do not have any speaker slips for oral communication. And so anyone wishing to address us? Seeing none, we will move on then to our public hearings. Our public hearing process starts with a staff presentation. The applicants are then given a time to add to the presentation. The commissioners will then ask questions of staff or the applicant. I will then open the public hearing and ask for testimony. If you wish to address the commission, you need to fill out one of our speaker slips. They're in the foyer, and I will call them. I usually call them in the order that I receive them. So after we've heard from everyone, I'll close the public hearing, open it up for commissioner discussion, and then we will take an action or take a vote. So our first item is public hearing 1, P210118, Vista Marketplace, new buildings. And Commissioner, or Rafi, I believe the staff report is yours.
Okay. And just to be clear, do I have access to this or? Okay. Good evening, Chairman Rossler, commissioners, members of the staff, and members of the public. The application before you tonight is for a site development plan amendment for Vista Marketplace expansion, permit number P21-0118. Oh, point it this way. There we go. Project location is address 1461 North Santa Fe Avenue. Project area is 1.22 acres in site. As for a multi-tenant retail building, and existing parking lot and landscape areas currently exist on site. General plan, currently neighborhood commercial, CN. allows for a broad range of commercial uses designed to be compatible with surrounding areas. Property is currently zoned C1 commercial, permitted uses, retail, restaurants, banks, among other commercial uses for this zone. The application is for an amendment to a previously approved site development plan, PC 14-071. Applications for a 4,980 square foot commercial retail building for 4 new tenant spaces, single story, maximum height 29 feet 4 inches. Proposed facade is to match the existing commercial retail buildings on site today. There will also be landscape improvements in the parking areas and around the building. This is the proposed site plan. Like I said before, building is 4,980 square feet. There are currently 378 parking spaces site-wide for the shopping center as a whole. Proposed will be 376 parking spaces once completed. This is the proposed landscape plan. Landscaping will include a combination of shade trees, shrubs, ground cover within the parking fingers. There will also be a landscape bioretention basin located behind the new shop building that will treat stormwater. These are the proposed elevations on all 4 sides. Proposed storefront will match the existing retail center with arched overhangs painted white, raised tower elements painted a tan color, aluminum storefronts with red glazing, accent ceramic tiles, light fixtures, and Spanish barrel roof tile. This is the proposed floor plan of the tenant spaces for a total of 4. Each space is roughly 1,200 square feet. Commercial retail centers are permitted in the C1 commercial zone, compatible with surrounding uses within the center, and the commercial retail center will maintain 376 parking spaces on site. Staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving an amendment to a previously approved site development plan for the construction of a new 4,980 square foot multi-tenant retail building located at 1461 North Santa Fe Avenue. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Do you know if the applicant's here and if they have a presentation?
Applicant is here and they do not have a presentation tonight. They are here, no presentation from the applicant.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, any questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Garrison.
Yes, I have a question on the parking. There's 378 spaces now, and you're going to take away approximately 30 or so in the back, and we're going to end up with 376. How does that happen?
So the site currently has 378 parking spaces. I believe they are, in regards to the site plan, let me go back to it. So the areas that they are taking away for parking, they are adding on to the side of the property along the driveway and to the rear of the building, as well as making parking improvements to the front of the building along East Beaubear Drive. The site as a whole for the entire shopping center is 378 parking spaces currently, and per their calculations, the site will include 376 parking spaces altogether.
So if it has 378 now and you're adding 4 places, why isn't there a requirement for more parking spaces?
Commissioner Garrettson, if you look on page 4 of 48 in the staff report, it's indicated in there that the existing shopping center, including the proposed building, would require a total of 351 parking spaces. So they actually have already a surplus. And so therefore, what Rafi is addressing is the fact that it's even with the addition and the resulting total parking space, it would still be above the 351.
So they were providing more than was required all along. So that's why it is in compliance now.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Commissioner
Question of
Hastings.
the applicant.
Okay, question of the applicant.
Applicant is present tonight.
Who's representing the applicant tonight? Come and join us. Name and address for our record, please.
Leonardo Dale from MPA Architects, and you need my address as well?
Yes, please.
Address is 3578 30th Street, San Diego, California.
Thank you.
You're
Commissioner
welcome.
Hastings has a question for you.
So in thinking about that part of the shopping center, from my perspective, thank you. That side of the building is often in deep shade. And I'm just wondering I'm not sure how appealing it is as a place to put new stores. So I wondered how it came about that, besides this opportunity to fill in a space, that it was decided to put some new store fronts there.
Well, just recently speaking with the owner, he owns the adjacent building next door, and there seems to be a huge demand for additional retail in that corner. There's a lot of visibility, there's a lot of foot traffic, and basically the way the site's lay out, there's a great space for additional space there.
Okay. Thanks.
Don't go anywhere. Commissioner Looney.
Thank you. The space that we have between the existing building and the new building is 11 feet.
Correct.
And we've got a particular building height. And along that corridor with with our culture today, that has the potential of gathering people during the evening hours. I think I haven't looked specifically at the lighting plan, but I would have you consider maybe having lighting in that area just to make sure that we don't have a collection of unwanted persons in that particular area of the.
Absolutely, and that has been considered. And a little bit of a background, the reason why the buildings are not connected is because that corridor currently works as an exit path for the adjacent building. So there are security lights in that area. We also intend to provide additional lighting, probably motion sensors. And if it does become an issue for the tenants to have people gathering there, we would also consider gating that area.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was just one of the potential issues that might occur. So thank you for addressing it.
I had a couple of questions along the lines of Commissioner Looney about security. Will there be cameras back there for nighttime hours?
I'm sorry.
Cameras?
Cameras?
Cameras.
Hasn't been brought up yet, but that's something you can certainly look into it.
Okay. And Rafi, was the project reviewed by the Sheriff's Department?
I believe so. They did send some information that I did forward to the applicant, but I can have them re-review it again and see what the conditions were for access, security, lighting, etc.
It's my understanding that Stater Brothers has had some problems with security and has done some additional things to prevent shoplifting. And so I was just curious if that has crossed the applicant's mind, and are they concerned about it, and what their plans are?
I'm sure we're going to consider all those facts. Like I said, if there was an issue with 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 panic hardware, so it doesn't interfere with exiting. Cameras are definitely something that would be considering.
Okay, all right, very good. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate
very
it.
welcome.
This is a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing. I do not have any speaker slips. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission on the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open it up to commissioner discussion. Commissioners? We've forgotten how to work the system. Commissioner Grimm.
Yeah, when I originally looked at the plans, I was a little concerned that the elevations on the east side and the south side maybe needed to be enhanced a little bit. But I did drive by there this afternoon, and they're not all that visible, and they've done a pretty good job of matching, matching up with the existing architecture. So I'm not that concerned about it at this point.
Okay. Any other comments? No? Would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Garrison?
I will move that we approve P21-0118 and recommend that they put cameras back there
Okay.
and additional lighting, sufficient lighting, whatever that might
Security
be.
lighting? All right. Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Hastings seconds the motion. Any additional discussion or comments? All in favor, cast your vote. And it is approved unanimously. Very good. All right. Moving along, do we need time to let staff switch out here?
1 minute.
All right, we will move on to our next public hearing, P20-0198, 1626 Anza Avenue subdivision. Mr. Ressler, your staff report, please.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight is 1626 Anza Avenue subdivision. The application number is P20-0190, and it's a request for a tentative subdivision map. The proposed subject site is located on the west side of Anza Avenue, south of Arcadia Avenue. The site is approximately 4.4 acres. It maintains 5 legal parcels. The site currently is vacant. However, it does maintain a small structure at the northwest corner of the site that's currently being demolished. The site also maintains a 20-foot wide access easement located along the northerly boundary. That access easement provides vehicular access to the property directly to the north. Surrounding land uses include agriculture to the north, duplexes to the east, single-family residences to the south, as well as single-family residences to the west. The general plan land use designation for the site is low-density residential. The zoning of the site is R1 residential, which has a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. The project before you tonight is a request for a tentative subdivision map. That map would subdivide the approximately 4.4 acre site into 14 single-family residential lots. Those lots would range in size from 10,010 square feet to 12,386 square feet, with the density of 3.18 dwelling units per acre. The project also includes drainage improvements, wet and dry utilities, as well as a 36-foot wide private street. No homes are proposed at this time. However, future homes would require to comply with the R1 zone requirements, which would include setback and structure heights. The proposed tentative subdivision map includes 14 single-family lots that are identified in red on this slide. Those lots, again, would range in size of 10,010 square feet to 12,386 square feet. The map would also include a narrow slope lot centrally located on the site, identified in green on this slide, as well as a biofiltration basin located along the Anza Avenue frontage, identified in blue on this slide. Access to the site would be provided by a private 36-foot wide street that would provide vehicular access to each individual lot within the development. That private street has been designed to provide parking on one side, and the grading plan before you tonight indicates a total of 15 parking spaces provided on that private street. In regards to landscape plan, the plan has been designed to comply with the city's landscape ordinance, including street trees and slope erosion control. The landscape plan also proposes fencing that will be provided around the perimeter of the subdivision, as well as between each individual lot. In regards to general plan consistency, the lots have been designed to comply with the R1 zone requirement of 10,000 square feet. The proposed use itself is consistent with the surrounding land uses and zoning. And although the underlining general plan land use designation of low-density residential limits the density to 2 dwelling units per acre, Senate Bill 330 does not require an amendment to the general plan for the proposed density of 3.18 dwelling units per acre. In regards to drainage and sewer issues, the proposed project has been designed to connect to the existing sewer and water system, as well as provide a storm drain system that will improve on-site drainage conditions. The proposed project has been designed to provide future sewer connection for the properties directly to the west of this site. However, due to the feasibility of those connections, there are conditions within your resolution that staff is not requiring at this time, including a paved access road as well as security gates associated with the sewer easement. Therefore, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission remove Engineering Division Conditions number 5, letter Q to letter T. With that, staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving a tentative subdivision map to subdivide 5 existing parcels totaling approximately 4.4 acres into 14-lot single-family residential subdivision located at 1626 Anza Avenue. That concludes staff's report. Staff, as well as the applicant, Damian Titano, is here to answer any questions you might have tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Garrettson?
So this is going to have 14 homes and 15 spaces. Street parking, I mean.
Street. Anza Avenue will be fully improved to where that expanded street will maintain an additional 5 parking spaces, or excuse me, 9 parking spaces, so for a total of 24 spaces.
Okay. Is it going to be alternate sides or just?
It would just be on one side of the street. The grading plan indicates it would be on the southerly side of the street.
Okay. Question number 2 is the area that is not part of this on the northern side, that little area that's cut out there. What does that area look like, and what is that area? Well, you look at.
Oh, yeah, that's a separate lot that's not included within the project. However, it's an intricate part of this because it actually provides access from Anza Avenue to the property directly to the north. That access continues on to 4 of the proposed lots in terms of an access easement that would continue and provide vehicular access to the agricultural use to the north. It's not included as part of this project. However, it provides access to that property to the north, and it combines with the access easement on this side as well.
What does that area look like? Because as you drive by, it's hard to see.
There's a single-family home on that lot. However, because of the elevation difference and the existing landscaping, you can't see what's on that site. However, based on an aerial photograph, it indicates that there's a single-family home up there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Looney.
Thank you. I'm looking at the grading plan, sheet 2 of 4. On some of the parcels, particularly on the southern parcels, they've got the 2-to-1 slope that is encroaching into the buildable area on many of the parcels. That's going to create maybe some potential issues with building footprint because the slope comes into that building pad, and so we're going to have a potential drainage issue. There is also, on the grading plan, there's no indication of how the stormwater system for each particular lot is taken off the property and onto the street. It basically rolls from lot 7 to lot 6 to lot 5, all the way down to Anza. I think the layout is good, the lot size is good, and maybe it needs to go to engineering, but I see some drainage concerns that are going to be potentially problematic when they start building.
I know the project engineer isn't here and available to answer questions. I know the applicant's here. He's pretty familiar with the design. He might want to come up and introduce himself and maybe engage in the conversation. I know that it's gone through our engineering division. It's gone through a stormwater review. It's gotten approved SWQMP, and it's ready to move on to that next phase in terms of a final SWQMP. So our engineering division is considering this design acceptable. However, in terms of specifics, the applicant might be able to address those.
Okay.
Hi, Damian Titano, 3288 Brushwood Lane, Fallbrook, California. As far as the existing condition, so the whole site slopes from northwest to southeast to where the basin is located, and we call it Lot 15. It's that lower lot. And they're currently, with the subdivision to the south, when it was built, I don't know, 30 years ago, there's actually a concrete swale that is on the top of their slope, which caught our runoff that would come to the south and then would bring it straight down to Anza. So we, in discussions with the engineer, we actually have now designed a continuation of that concrete swale that goes throughout the perimeter of our site, and it all leads, instead of it going directly, just right now it just spills out onto Anza, that all that water will now go into the detention basin, and then it will be cleaned and put into the street. And I don't know exactly the technicalities of how it goes from our basin to the street into the inlet, because there's an inlet, there's a storm drain inlet that's like 10 feet to the south of me. But it'll all be collected and cleaned in that lot before it hits Anza.
Okay. I'm concerned from lot to lot.
So I am concerned from lot to lot as well. And so most likely what I imagine happening is because I agree that some of the lots have a 14-foot slope when we have a 10-foot setback. And that's what the concern is. Are we going to put a building right at the 10 feet? That side is actually probably going to be, the lots are 70 feet wide. So I don't know that the building actually needs to go to the boundaries of the setbacks. And even if it did, we would then put either in its own drainage swale at the toe of slope or treat the water in some other way. But obviously we need to collect that water as it comes onto the site or onto the slope, and then it'll be directed towards the back. So the whole pad actually tilts slightly towards the rear. And so as it comes off the hill west to east, it'll be tilted to the south, and then it cuts from the south down to the drainage, the concrete swale that's there now.
Okay. Just for staff, I would encourage engineering to look at that. because that information isn't on this grading plan. And if I'm on a lower pad, I've got to deal with 14 feet of slope.
So technically that 14 feet is the lot's 14 feet. So the lot line is actually at top of slope. So all of that slope and all that water that's coming down is coming on to that one lot. So the lot is taking care of itself. It's independent. So that slope belongs to that lot.
Okay, I see that. Okay, point well made. Thank you.
Any other
Don't go
questions?
away.
Okay.
One other question. Are these going to be sold as individual lots, or is the city anticipating a package for a subdivision with with plans?
There is no plan for a large subdivision with a larger community. My wife and I are planning on building these. I'm an architect, and so they will probably be done one or two at a time, and they might be custom lots. Well, they'll all be custom lots, but they may be built to spec with clients, or I'm not sure exactly how they're going to be built, but it's intended to be developed as almost like a custom neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
The challenge I see is you've got to maintain all that landscaping until those lots are built out and sold.
I agree. So in this plan, and there's an HOA that is being developed with this that will take care of all the slope management and all the street landscape. So that'll all take care of.
But each lot will have their individual water meter.
So I actually just met with the contractor before we came over today, and we were having that conversation. Currently, it is designed that there is 1 meter for all of the slopes and the landscape, and that would be part of the HOA. He suggested looking at it potentially as individual and being able to cut those off. That's a further discussion we haven't had yet. But right now, it's currently designed as 1 meter, 1 irrigation meter for all of the streets, the street improvements and the slopes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Thank you
Yep.
for your answers.
Yep.
Hang on. Commissioner Grimm?
Yeah, I think this is probably a question for both of you to maybe take a look at. It's a private street. It has parking on one side. And obviously the reason for that is you get more lot area. And I don't begrudge you lot area. It's hard enough to, or that number of lots, it's hard enough to develop right now anyway. But I guess my question would be, I kind of have a problem with parking on one side. My daughter lives in that situation. I have some other friends that live in that situation, and it's not always a good situation. At night when everybody comes home, people kind of there's only a certain number. And that's one of my questions. It's going to be how many parking spaces are you getting on that side of the street? But in this situation where my daughter lives, everybody comes home, pretty soon the spaces fill up, and they're pulling on around the corner into a different area to make the parking work. So I guess my question to both of you would be, has there been any thought of making it parking on both sides, but maybe pulling a little maybe reconfiguring the square footage of the lot so you still get 14, but that you can make it work on both sides? So I don't know if that was looked at or not.
I'm speaking out of turn, but I'll answer anyways. The idea for the 36, I actually originally thought that was parking on both sides. And then we've kind of discovered that the city standard's a little bit less. The other jurisdictions, 36 is parking on both sides. I would have no problem if you wanted to say there's parking on both sides for 36. The difference of that 4 feet between 36 and 40, if that is the standard for is the difference of losing lots. And I know that that's really difficult to say, but there are some lots that are right at 10,000. So therefore, if I made that 40 feet wide, because I can't count the right-of-way as the lot, because even though it's a private street, the lot has to be outside of the right-of-way. So then I would lose a lot just for that extra 4 feet. So
You lose one lot then.
yeah, and I don't think that's. I don't think
Somebody's
that's a
taken
problem. And again,
taken the time to actually calculate that out.
yes, I have. And so go ahead.
I think, and I was going through this exercise, and I know the southerly properties are right at 10,000 square feet or 10,010 square feet. However, the 5 properties or 4 properties on the northerly side are oversized. I think there's actually only one lot And that would be 4 foot by the property width. And I think the only lot that would be substandard, it would be by 34 square feet. And that would be lot number 13. If it was the planning commission's intentions of expanding that street to 40-foot width in order to provide parking on both sides of the street.
And still get 14 lots.
And still get 14 lots.
That's all I care
So
about.
by your calculation, one lot might be a little bit short, but, you know,
It would still meet the
Looking at it,
density
it
of
would
the
be-
zone. However, the lot area would be just a bit substandard by 36 square feet.
and that would be, I think, within planning interpretation that it would meet. Yeah, it's called at 34, so,
I'm totally good with that as long as I get 14 lots.
okay, good. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I don't,
Do we need to go to 40 feet? Do we, as the planning commission, have the ability to say they can have parking on both sides of the street with 36 feet?
You could,
Yeah, it's a fire.
yes, it would be at your discretion, but however, our,
Yes.
So if you want to have parking on both sides of the street, you need to make it 40 feet.
Okay, all right. Thank you, John.
Those fire trucks.
All right. Commissioner Grimm, do you get your questions answered?
yeah, I don't, again, don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but I
I'm
like
going to
that
go to
idea.
Commissioner Hastings, and then I'll come back to you guys. Okay? Commissioner Hastings.
I had a parking question of a sort, and that is, how do you control parking in the cul-de-sac?
The way that I understand the cul-de-sac, and I know that there's not the intent to have anything with a red curb, is that the cul-de-sac is still an adequate template, or that 80-foot diameter, for there to be parking on the way around it, in the way that I understand cul-de-sacs. So I don't know that we've accounted that, because I think that we're not showing any parking on the cul-de-sac. Right, but I believe that an 80-foot diameter cul-de-sac allows parking. That's a fire issue.
that's a fire issue.
Right. Right. As long as it doesn't conflict with the driveway is what he said, which it wouldn't. There would be some spaces on the cul-de-sac. So it is a little bit more than 5.
Okay?
Yeah.
Probably about 4 or 5 spaces, I would say, within the cul-de-sac. However, it's not identified on the drawing.
Commissioner Looney.
Those questions for staff. With the state having made several adjustments to lot sizes, is there a minimum lot size that has to be adhered to?
Yes. Under this subdivision, it has to meet the 10,000 square feet in the zone it's in, or if the planning commission wants to allow for a smaller lot size to accommodate this wider street issue, they can do that. We can't exceed a density of 5 units to the acre based on, or I guess it's 4 units to the acre based on the general plan designation. So the lot size would be corresponding to that density designation. But technically, in answer to your question is SB 9 and the requirements that the state recently passed don't affect this subdivision because it's splitting the lot into more than just 2 lots. That would only
Okay.
apply to a 2-lot subdivision. Anytime you want to go above just 2 lots, you have to go through the Subdivision Map Act and meet all of our normal requirements, which this applicant is doing.
Okay. Thank you, John. One other question. Does the city have any policy for site plan review where we have a main residence and then an accessory dwelling structure? Is that ever required by a site plan review for the city? So if I have a quarter acre and I propose a new single-family home with the intention of adding an accessory dwelling unit later on, does the city have any review policy in place where they're going to look at the main building and the future ADU?
No.
Okay,
We look at the main building at the time it comes in for building permit to conform with setbacks and building height. It's pretty much the extent of our review. If they want to do an ADU and they inform us at that time, we can certainly look at that issue, but it's not a requirement at the time that you submit for your single-family home.
okay, thanks, John.
And Commissioner Garrettson.
Yes, in terms of the street parking, are there full sidewalks on both sides?
That's correct. 5-foot wide sidewalks on each side of the development.
Pardon? What kind of sidewalks?
5 foot wide?
5 foot wide. Okay, that was my question. I had failed to look at that. Thank you.
All right. Most of my questions have been answered through the discussion. Just let me warn you, as someone who lives on a private street that was designed to city standards 35 years ago, that you need to have really strong language in your CCNRs and your road maintenance agreement. Some of the new residents on my street are reluctant to participate in repaving the street, and it's gotten to be a bone of contention in the neighborhood. So I would encourage you to take a strong look at your CCNRs and if you're going to have a road maintenance agreement, how that all functions. Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay. All my questions have been answered. We will move on then to the public hearing. We do have one speaker, Ken Trotta. They're okay. Mr. Trotta, come and join us.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Ken Trotta. I live at 718 Honeydew, which is the road just south of the new division. And I have just a few questions, and I'm sort of representing my neighbors who couldn't make it tonight. And first, let's see, the first thing was about the culvert that runs behind our houses along there. Talking about the drainage issue, it's big. Whenever it rains, mud runs down to Anza, and it makes a real mess. So I was wondering about that culvert because it's on our property, not, well, it's sort of half and half. Like the property markers are on right next to the culvert or whatever the other name was called. So I don't know who's going to own that or be responsible for it at that time for the new runoff. So can that question be answered, or do I just bring it up now? Or
give me all your questions, and then we'll have staff or the applicant answer them all.
Okay, great. So we're concerned with the culvert that runs down. Who's responsible for it, and is it big enough to handle the runoff? Because it does slope pretty steeply down towards Anza and also down towards Honeydew. So it sort of runs southeast, I think, the slope. Will they be 1 or 2 story homes? And do we know that yet?
You need to ask me. And
oh, okay. Will they be 1 or 2 story homes? We're a little concerned with the 2 story. The reason is we're not sure they'll be set back far enough. I don't want to like go in my backyard and see, somebody's bathroom window up here and their balcony and so on, if it can be helped. So that's really 2 questions, 1 or 2 story, and how far will the setback be from our street, from our homes? What I wanted to begin with that, and I skipped over it, was Honeydew was put in 1984, so that's 37 years that's been there. And that's been an abandoned nursery for 37 years, so it's been very quiet, nothing but coyotes back there. And, now that they're developing the property, it's pretty well cleaned up back there. But basically, I wanted to, it's a real quiet street, another dead-end street, and a private street, as you mentioned. This one will be. And so that's my 3 questions about the culvert, the 1 or 2 stories, the setback from the backyard. And the last question is the timeline. How long will this construction be going on? Because it's been going on for like a year now. They've been, leveling and chopping down trees and taking down structures and so on. So,
okay, very good.
That is my questions. Thank you,
okay.
Commissioner.
Thank you. We have a question for you, Mr. Trotta. Come join us. Commissioner Grimm?
I'm sorry, just a quick one, Mr. Trotta. Are all the homes on your street single story?
Yes, they're all single story, and both sides of the street, and everybody in that area is single story. So, I like the idea of, really having 2 stories because you're using the land better, but at the same time, I don't want to, I would like to be able to sit in my backyard without seeing somebody's house, if I can help. Yeah, we're worried about the setback. Everybody down the whole street, I talked to all the people on my side of the street. So they're worried about the setback and the height.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
thanks.
you. Michael, my reading of the map shows that a new culvert is going to be built on the south property line and run all the way down to the detention basin
On this project site, that's correct.
on the applicant's property, right?
That first question. The second question was the single or two-story homes. You might want to talk to the applicant about that. However, the underlining zoning is R1, which is consistent with the adjacent property or the neighborhood that we were just referring to directly to the south. The R1 zone does allow for 2 stories, maximum height of 35 feet. The setbacks would be 10 foot for a single story element, 20 feet for a 2-story element. And this again would be consistent with this project as well as the existing development to the south. So 2-story homes would be permitted in the R1 zone altogether.
Okay. Mr. Tarantino, what's your vision here for the street? Do you envision 2-story homes fronting on your private street?
I would say that there's a high likeliness that there would be portions that were definitely 2-story. And
Okay.
so, and again, I think what the city addresses is that at a 10-foot setback to a single story and a 20-foot setback to a 2-story, it's accommodating what the neighbor is worried about. And they all sit a little bit below the site. I don't know if you look at Honeydew lots, their lots are actually 10,000 to the center line of the street. And so their lots are actually shallower. And so you look at the depth of our lots compared to their 10,000 lots, our lots are much deeper. So we have more flexibility on that setback. But obviously we'll be developing per the allowed R1 zoning.
Okay. Mr. Trotta, do you understand that if it goes 2-story, they're going to have an additional 10 feet of setback for that second story?
I didn't.
Okay.
So again, I've been along this process in many other sites, not my own. Because there's going to be a new 6-foot fence that's not existent through, and I don't know if his parcel has a solid fence, but some of them are just a chain link or a wire fence. But we are conditioned obviously to have a solid fence. So with their slope and the solid fence with that additional setback, the impact of the 2-story is actually, it's going to be out over the fence is going to be very difficult to see.
Right.
Because they're looking up from the fence.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And then your timeline.
So honestly, as quickly as we can. So obviously with COVID and other things, it took us a while to get to this point. And with the clearing that he's talking about and cleaning up, obviously now that there's an active owner on the property, I often get letters from the fire department to make sure that there's no fire hazard. So that's why we've demolished all the old nursery buildings that were falling down. And so those have all been demolished. There's still an existing house that needs to be demolished, but that one's going to be done with the grading. So.
Typically in the city, as I understand it, it takes about 6 months to process grading and final maps. Probably at least another 3 months to grade the property.
Yep. I
So
would say that's,
within the year, your pads may be established and houses may be constructed if everything goes well.
that would be exciting. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So that closes the public hearing. Any discussion amongst the commissioners? Commissioner Looney?
Yeah, just coming back to the height issue. The majority of the lots off of Honeydew sit 5 feet or greater below the property line. And then the pads along the proposed subdivision, 1 through 8, have an increase of about 5 feet. So even with a single family home, a single level family home, there's not going to be able to, there's going to be some visual aspects of the new homes looking down onto the existing homes off of Honeydew, just because of the terrain that they're dealing with. I mean, 6-foot fence helps, but you've got a grade difference of 5 feet from the property line to the building pad, in addition to the height from the building, from the property line to the existing pad off of Honeydew. So that's, I would suggest some landscape screening, but that's about all that you're going to be able to do to create some of that privacy. So I think there has to be some give and take, but simply because of the physical nature of the topography, your privacy in those backyards are going to be compromised to some degree.
Commissioner Garrettson.
I want to get back to the subject of drainage. If everything drains into the catch basin, will that be enough for a typical rain to have it not flow into the street? Because I heard about a bunch of mud going into the street and backing up. And how far down from this does it go into a drain?
And actually, the site, the whole entire site drains down to the filtration basin. That filtration basin is, I think, about 8,000 square feet, I think it is. The initial depth before you get to any material is 3 foot deep. It is designed to take the water on, filtrate it, release it into Anza, and then that would slowly flow down via, I'm having a hard time pronouncing it, Felicidad, and that would carry on, continue into the neighborhood, and ultimately get to the storm drain on, and I have it in the staff, actually the staff report indicates where it ultimately would be conveyed to.
And it's not allowed to flow.
To Calais Julius, excuse me.
The purpose of the detention basin is to clean the water and not allow it to flow any faster than it is now.
That's
right?
correct. And hold the water, treat it, and then slowly release it. Correct.
Okay.
So this should not, because now you have more surface that isn't terrain. It's cement and so forth, that you're going to have more drainage. So this should take care of that to where it doesn't increase the amount of drainage that goes on Anza. Is that correct?
That's correct. It should take anything above what's existing there right now and treat it and handle it appropriately. However, the mud condition should be better because you're looking at a developed site rather than a vacant dirt or landscape lot at this point. So that condition should get better.
Thank you.
Commissioner Looney.
Yeah, just along that note, right now we've got an empty lot and it all slopes to the Honeydew properties. And over the last 3, 4, 5 years, there's been new codes and requirements that allow us to, that force us to take all that rainwater and take it into a bioretention basin. The development on Honeydew, it comes off the roof and it goes into the street. Now we have to collect all that water. We can't put water onto the street any longer unless it goes through that bioretention filtration system. So we put it back into the soil, and then if we have a deluge of rain, then it'll go into the street. But that's the way we have to deal with stormwater today. So it's all designed to be put back in the ground. So I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Looney. We are in the process of discussing the project. Any further comments from the commissioners? Would someone like to make a motion then? Commissioner Grimm?
I'll move staff recommendation approving the project with the additional condition that the applicant increase the size of the street to 40 feet to accommodate parking on both sides per our discussion.
Okay, and the removal of the sewer conditions that's
Yes, thank
suggested
you.
by staff?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, it's been moved to approve the project. Commissioner Garrettson?
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve with additional street size of 40 feet to accommodate parking on the north side and removal of the sewer conditions per staff's recommendation. All in favor, cast your vote. And the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, good luck.
Mr. Trotta, thank you for coming tonight. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
sorry. You're the first public we've had in a long time.
We're getting lonely.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Conley, tell us about the state housing.
This isn't going to be fun.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'll give you a little update on the recent activity in Sacramento. In September, there were 3 housing legislation bills approved by the governor, SB 8, 9, and 10. They all become active on January 1st of next year. Senate Bill 8 is an extension of the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, which is also known as SB 330. This is the law that allows us to approve developments that are consistent with our general plan regardless of the zoning. It also applies a lot of concessions to developers in the way of process and the way the city handles housing applications. The primary change there is that the law was originally adopted to sunset in 2025, and they extended it for another 5 years to 2030. And I'll cover that specifically, but that's the major change with SB 8. SB 9 is new legislation that introduces the ability to build duplexes or do lot splits in single-family zones. That's probably the most extensive change, and I'll go through that. And SB 10 gives the ability to upzone in transit or infill areas, and so I'll cover each one. As I mentioned, SB 8 is the extension of SB 330, was intended to increase housing supply, was originally scheduled to sunset in 2025, will now extend to 2030. Some of the things that were originally scheduled to sunset that will extend include the ability or the inability for an agency to disapprove a project or approve it at a lower density without objective standards in place at the time of preliminary application. The city is currently developing our objective standards, and we'll be bringing those to the Planning Commission and the City Council probably late this year, early next year. Changes to housing projects are allowed under the law, including increasing the number of units or square footage by up to 20% as part of an initial application. Completed applications have to be done within 180 days of submittal, and there's a 5-hearing limit for housing projects, and hearings are defined as any public meeting where the developer is required to present the project. That's pretty much it for SB 8. Nothing major, but it extends the time. The really exciting one is SB 9. This allows for duplexes and lot splits in single-family residential zones. Some people are calling this the end of single-family zoning. But in short, the law applies to any lot in a single-family residential zone within the city. So that's in a zoned area or in a specific plan. The lot has to be within an urbanized area as defined by the Census Bureau, which includes essentially all the incorporated areas within the city. So we're all eligible. There are some prohibitions, however, that include wetlands, earthquake fault zones, lands that are under a conservation easement, anything within a FEMA floodplain, or high fire hazard severity zones. We don't have a lot of these sensitive areas within Vista, but we do have some flood zones, which are shown on the left, primarily running along, they're hard to see, but they run along Buena Vista Creek to the north and along North Santa Fe, some of the drainages there that contribute to Buena Vista Creek, and along Agua Hedionda Creek in the south, but majorly along the drainage corridors. You can apply for a letter of map revision to change these floodplains with the appropriate studies. And so the state legislation allows for that process to continue, but if you're within a flood zone, it's not automatic that you could split your lot or build a duplex. On the right is the high fire hazard severity zones that are mapped by the state. These are areas that are all susceptible to wildfire under high wind conditions primarily. You can see that a lot of the portions of the southerly Shadow Ridge area around the golf course, as well as some of the eastern portions of the city up against the foothills, are in those high fire hazard areas. And so those areas would be excluded from being allowed to take advantage of SB 9 as well. These maps are really rough and they're large scale, but we have a lot more detailed maps if you want to get into the specific lots that are prohibited under these layers. There are some anti-displacement requirements under SB 9 where the intent was not to get rid of renters or people that are renting their property. So you can't demolish or alter a residence that is either indeed restricted affordable housing or rent-controlled housing. It cannot be used on any property where it was withdrawn from the rental market within the last 15 years or that was occupied by a tenant in the last 3 years. And this is really intended to just protect the people that are renting these properties from an owner coming in and throwing them out to subdivide and increase density. SB 9 requires ministerial approval. In other words, the city's discretion is now removed. We no longer can bring projects to a decision-making body and impose conditions upon approval. We have to do all the review up front with our objective standards in place and make sure that the project meets all of those requirements, and then it's automatically approved once it meets those standards. The ministerial approval applies to anyone that wants to build 2 residential units on their single-family lot, which can be 2 new dwelling units, or can be adding 1 new dwelling unit to an existing dwelling unit, or the creation of a 2-lot subdivision. The 2-lot subdivision allowance still has to follow the Subdivision Map Act, so we have the ability to review the map and look at what access and driveway cuts and drainage and all those other things would normally apply, but we're doing that up front and we're approving it at the staff level rather than reviewing it and bringing it to the commission or the council for approval with conditions and then doing a final map. So it's all wrapped into one process now. The general rules for the 2-lot subdivision is that it can only be split to 40% of the original lot size. So if you have a 10,000 square foot lot, you can only split it to 6,000 and 4,000. You couldn't go lower than 4,000 on one of the lots. The minimum lot size is 1,200 square feet, but that's only within the parameters of that 60-40 split. So there's no lots in Vista that are 2,500 square feet, so you're not going to really get to a lot that's 1,200, but our smallest lots that are around 6,000 could split into 2,000, 3,000 square foot lots, for an example. You cannot subdivide a lot that was previously split under SB 9, so if you use SB 9 and split your lot, you can't go back and do further lot splits in the future. And adjacent parcels can only be split under SB 9 if there's separate owners, so independent ownership is required. As we talked tonight, a developer couldn't come in and buy a 5-lot or a 5-acre parcel and split it into 15 lots under this provision. They'd only be able to split it one time. It'd have to be owned by 2 separate owners at the time of subdivision, and that would be the only amount of splitting that you could do. So on smaller parcels where there's single-family homes or you're at your minimum lot size, we may see people take advantage of this. But on larger lots where there's an opportunity to get more than just 2 lots, most likely developers are still going to follow the Subdivision Map Act and go through our process to get more than just 2 lots. SB 9 also limits our ability to reject any housing development that's proposed under this legislation. It's very similar to SB 330. We have to come up with written findings based on a preponderance of evidence that the project would have a specific adverse impact on public health and safety that cannot be mitigated. This is an extremely high legal standard to reach. So conceptually, anyone that applies under this law that meets our minimum standards is going to get approved. A local agency has the authority to impose objective standards for zoning, subdivision, and design through our local ordinance, subject to certain limitations. Objective standards are typically numeric standards or very clear standards that require no judgment on behalf of the local agency, and they have to just be imposed exactly as written. So we're in the process, as I said, of developing those, and we'll be bringing those forward. Within the parameters of SB 9, the objective standards cannot require a setback greater than the setback that's in place if there's an existing building on the site, and there's a maximum 4-foot side and rear yard setback for new or expanded structures. That's also consistent with the ADU laws. So similar thing, 4-foot minimum side and rear yard setbacks are applied here. The critical thing that the state indicates in their legislation is that no matter what our standards are, we cannot physically limit or prevent someone from building at least an 800 square foot dwelling unit on their property. So likely we'll have a whole bunch of standards that apply, and at the bottom we'll have a disclaimer that says something like, but we can't prohibit you from building 800 square feet, so we'll work through those applications, but that's the limit in the state law. With respect to parking, there's a requirement for 1 space per unit within the law. That's statewide, but there are some exceptions. There's no parking required when the property is located within a half-mile radius of a major transit stop. That's considered to be a transit center or a bus stop with 15-minute headways. And there's no parking required when located within a block of a car share vehicle, which I don't think we have any in Vista. With respect to ADUs and junior ADUs, we can prohibit those when the lot was split pursuant to SB 9 and there's a duplex developed on each lot. So someone couldn't come in, split their lot, build a duplex on each lot, and then come back and get ADUs on those properties later. Once the property is developed with a duplex per SB 9, the ADUs are restricted in the future. So we'll be able to adopt some kind of deed restriction or some type of notice internally that will disallow them from building ADUs. However, the law is unclear if the city can restrict ADUs when there's 1 unit added to an existing unit without a lot split. So if someone has an existing home and they want to build a second unit, the law doesn't distinguish whether or not they can continue to build an ADU beyond that. So we're going to have to seek some clarification. There are a number of things in the law that are not completely clear that we've reviewed with the attorney's office, and we're going to wait and hear from Sacramento what some of those clarifications are because every city's in the same boat. The other thing with respect to SB 9 is it is exempt from CEQA, so none of these projects will have to go through any type of environmental review. So some examples of what it looks like. For a 2-unit project, you can have an existing lot or an existing home with no subdivisions. You can build 2 new units, or you can build 1 unit onto your existing unit. It has to be at least 800 square feet, as mentioned, within the parameters of our objective standards. You may or may not be able to build an ADU in this circumstance. We're unclear on that. As mentioned, it would require a 4-foot side and rear yard setback. The front setbacks are still the same within the zone, but the side and rear have to comply with the state. And as mentioned, 1 parking space unless it fits within one of those exemptions. For a lot split, you could split a lot where there's an existing home. It would have to be at least 40/60, as I mentioned, for the basis of the existing lot. And each new lot would have to be at least 1,200 square feet. Again, this would be approved administratively. For 2 units with a lot split, you could build 2 new units on, well, first you could split the lot into 2, and then you could build 2 new units on each lot. Or you could build 1 unit on each lot and come back later and build another unit on each lot. Each unit would have to be at least 800 square feet, compliant with the objective standards. Again, would have to meet the 4-foot side and rear yard setbacks. In this scenario, if you built 2 units on the lot, you would not be able to build an ADU in the future. And again, would require 1 parking space per unit unless it met the exemptions of the distance to transit. All kinds of fun stuff. So a couple other things that we're seeking clarification on. It's silent on the applicability of CCRs and HOA rules, so it's unclear with respect of the ability for homeowners associations to regulate their members under this law. And it's also unclear as to whether a local agency can apply affordable housing requirements for new units or lot splits under this law. So those are both clarifications we'll be seeking from the state. Currently, staff's preparing the objective standards that we'll need for these types of projects. We hope to have something drafted by the end of November, and we hope to bring it to Planning Commission in December or January with adoption by council early next year. Again, the objective standards can't prohibit a unit of at least 800 square feet, but we'll put into play all of the things that we do have that are objective that we can apply to these projects. Deed restrictions can be required for prohibiting short-term rentals, which is something that's prohibited under the law. Future lot splits, as I mentioned before, and non-residential uses. So we'll probably be preparing some forms for deed restrictions to utilize in those circumstances. And there is an owner occupancy requirement under SB 9 for a lot split. So there's an affidavit that an owner has to sign in order to take advantage of the law. And we'll be preparing a form for that as well. SB 10 is the last law I'm going to cover here. This is the upzoning of transit or infill areas. This law authorizes a public agency to upzone any parcel up to 10 dwelling units per acre that's located in a transit-rich area or an urban infill site. A transit-rich area is generally those areas within a half-mile radius of a transit center or a fixed bus route with 15-minute headways, very similar to the other language in the law. There are some other parameters for bus routes, but it's generally within a transit center or a bus route that's got 15-minute headways. A urban infill site is essentially any property within an incorporated city that's surrounded by more than 75% of the perimeter of the site is surrounded by development. And I believe that's the only requirement, that it be in an incorporated area and be surrounded by 75% of development. So a majority of vacant parcels in Vista will fit that category. The critical thing to note here for SB 10 is the lead agency or the local agency still retains the discretionary authority to allow this. So it's not automatic. The city council can decide if they want to apply SB 10 in a transit-rich or urban infill site and upzone with a simplified process that's exempt from CEQA. So it essentially creates an expedited process for the council to consider zone changes in these areas that they want to consider. However, I've not gotten any feedback from the council that they're interested in pursuing anything at this time. So if they do indicate an interest in pursuing upzoning subject to this bill, we'll be bringing it back to the commission to identify that. I don't really expect anything in the near term. And that completes my presentation. I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Any questions of Mr. Conley? Commissioner Garrettson?
Yes, Mr. Conley, you said something about a map, that we could look at a map. How would we go about getting that map that would tell us what is impacted by SB 9, SB 10?
So we're in the process of developing some maps that we're going to hand out at the counter to show these areas that are prohibited. But you can go into our GIS system through the city's website, and there's layers for the fire zones as well as layers for the flood zones that you can turn on and look at. And if you call me this week, I'd be happy to walk you through that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Grimm?
Yeah, I guess more of an editorial comment. This just strikes me as another one of those things that looks like it feels good for people that are, really like all of us feel like there needs to be more affordable housing, but I'm not sure this is really going to accomplish much. I mean, what you
No, I agree. For people that want to build a second unit, this is a good tool. It's pretty much the same as ADUs, only it's called a second unit. So I don't know what the difference is there. I'm kind of still confused about all that. But the reality is if you want to build 2 units on your single family property, this SB 9 gives you a tool to do that. So you may see some additional development of second units. As far as the lot splits go, I don't see really a lot of opportunity for that for a couple reasons. One, it's still going to require access and easements and all the things that you need to subdivide your property to get to a second lot. And most single family homes are arranged in a way that aren't going to provide for that. So the people that have lots that can take advantage of that, yes, they might be able to do that, but there's not a lot of them out there. Secondly, a lot of the lots that are vacant are larger lots that probably could subdivide more than just one time. So those are people that may not want to take advantage of this and come and do a subdivision like Mr. Titano did tonight. So there's opportunity for them. The benefit here is you don't have to build public improvements. So all your street improvements are out. So I can look around Foothill and see a half dozen lots out there that I know will probably come in and want to take advantage of it. But citywide, you're not going to see 20 or 30% of our lots go through this process because it's just not available. The other thing to consider is you still have to meet the subdivision map act. So you have to submit a detailed map proposal that's prepared by a civil engineer that has surveyed property boundaries and all the detailed engineering. So you're talking, 20, 30 grand in cost to have a engineer prepare your plans and submit through the city.
You're
It's
going to
not
have to pay
cheap.
full fees as well.
You'll have to pay full fees, and
yeah,
we'll
that's gonna
actually
make
be
it
coming up
difficult.
with a new fee for urban lot splits because it takes the tentative map process and the final map process and combines it into one. We have 2 separate fees for that right now, so we're going to have to break that down and create one fee for the new map review.
So obviously, if you're splitting a lot, you can't share sewer, for example. It has to be a separate sewer hookup.
Correct.
but, Yeah.
Yeah, separate lateral tied to the main.
Water. Yeah.
Same thing, your separate meter.
So in my thinking about this, I'm thinking that it kind of applies, like you said, to Foothill and maybe the E1 neighborhoods in town. The master plan communities, usually those lots are pretty well maxed out and meet their setbacks. So there's probably not going to be a big opportunity there for people. I think Charlie and I, and maybe even Beth, live in the fire zone, so we're probably excluded. So, yeah, so probably Don's the only one.
Probably the
that's gonna
first
have to
time you've been
worry.
happy to live in a high fire hazard severity
Yeah.
zone.
One benefit, finally. You answered my question about lot split and access. They'll either have to have a fee strip or an easement,
Correct,
and that's going to be 20 feet wide.
correct.
Okay. And it's got to be done by the owners. So, okay, very good. Any other Mr. Commissioner Looney?
Thank you. A community where I do a lot of work, they've hired attorneys to deal with this exemption under the HOA. And from what they're seeing is that the HOA has power to not allow this to happen.
That's what we understand as well, but it's unclear in the law, so we're waiting for some clarification from HCD on that.
And then does this prohibit me from putting a deed restriction on my parcel of land from it ever being split?
No. You can do whatever you want with your own parcel as far as deed restricting future users, but that's not a city thing. That would be a private owner thing.
Okay, okay. And I would say 70% of my work is ADUs, and they are very expensive. So it's not affordable. The A doesn't stand for affordable.
Yeah, well, we see a majority of these applications are family. It's grandma or a mom or dad or someone that someone's building it for. We really see fewer for investment purposes than we do for people that need it for a family member.
One last comment. One of the local coastal communities passed a series of laws last week that were implemented on the 13th that prohibits the use of natural gas. That is wreaking havoc. And the argument was for carbon footprint, but I just hope City of Vista doesn't go down that road because it's going to create so many long-term problems.
I don't know if you listened to the council meeting on the 12th, but if you didn't, there's very low likelihood that we will be going down that road.
I'm encouraged. And thank you.
Commissioner Hastings.
I was wondering, a couple of things. One is, it's when you have three laws like this, you really see the sausage making, right? Because it doesn't all fit.
For sure.
And what's the staff burden for these laws, especially this ministerial part where it all stays with you guys and never lands here?
So we have the same review process generally in place now. It's just the way we handle them. But we'll see probably a volume increase as a result of the law, just like we did for ADUs. So there will probably be some staff impact. It's hard to tell right now how great it's going to be. But I expect, we'll probably see a 20 or 30% increase in subdivision applications over the next couple of years.
And of course, you'll get 20 to 30% more staff.
Yeah, the good thing is we'll have objective standards that are pretty clear up front. So a lot of the gray area that you get in subdivision design review right now will hopefully be eliminated, and we can just kind of streamline these things. That's what I'm hoping for.
You either comply or you don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot,
John. Anything additional for
Yeah, so I have a couple updates as well.
Okay.
If we're done with the legislative update. Anybody have more questions about the wonderful new state laws? No? Okay. So thank you. Our next meeting is going to be, it looks like on December 7th. We have the month of November off, so enjoy your holiday, Thanksgiving, and hopefully you guys have a nice month. Because of the IT problems that we continue to experience in here, we will be upgrading the communication system in the chamber here, and that's going to start in November. So our next meeting on December 7th will not be in the chamber. It looks like they're probably going to be redoing it for a couple months. So the 12/7 meeting will be in the community room, and we'll make sure that that's all advertised correctly. But most likely the December meeting and maybe a January or 2 meeting will be in the community room until the upgrades are done in here. The city council reviewed a couple of general plan amendment requests at their last 2 meetings. On the 28th of September, they reviewed one at the corner of Emerald and Skyhaven, or Sunset and Skyhaven, by the Green Valley Mobile Home Park to build 55 attached units. It would require a rezone from commercial to multifamily. It was not received great by the council. It looks like they may have to go back and do some revisions and reduce their density and increase their parking count, and they'll probably come back with a revised design. So just be on the lookout for some more on that one. And there was also a review of a general plan amendment at South Melrose and Madigual across from the Rite Aid and the courthouse there. It's a 5-acre site, and they were proposing 38 single-family detached homes on small lots. It would require a rezone from OP, office professional, and R1 to multifamily. Same thing, council said they need to look at their density and parking issues and come back with a revised design. Work with the neighbors. There was a lot of outspoken neighbors from the Madigual neighborhood that were opposed to the density, and so they'll go back to the drawing board and come back again as well. I'm happy to announce that the council approved our climate action plan update finally after many meetings, and gave us direction to move forward with a community choice energy program, which we're further evaluating, and I'll bring back some direction on that once we get final direction from the council, hopefully next month. The CAP conversation did bring up the electrification that Encinitas recently passed, and there are a lot of cities that have adopted what I would consider to be somewhat draconian measures in their caps that are requiring developers to do things like electrification, or when people do major permits, they have to have energy efficiency evaluations and install new appliances and things like that. We're not going down that road. Our cap is primarily focused on what the city can do, and we haven't pushed the burden onto the development industry. That may be the next phase, depending on how aggressive things get. But the cap that was adopted primarily just focuses on what we can do internally as a city. Photovoltaic and, electric vehicles, that kind of thing. If we do look at any construction-related measures, they will come before the commission as well. And then finally, the council is going to review the location potentially for homeless shelters on the 26th, the next meeting next Tuesday, and discuss that as an issue as part of our homeless master plan and the potential for locating a shelter somewhere in Vista, in case you're interested. That's all I have, unless Patsy, did you have anything I missed? No. Those are my updates.
Let me ask about the South Melrose General Plan Amendment. It seems to me that there's been some discussion in the past about the size of units going on the small lot subdivisions. Any additional guidance or discussion about that?
So staff got some direction from council to prepare a small lot ordinance that would allow for subdivisions in that 5 to 10 unit per acre density range with lot lines, because as you know, most of those projects are condos the way we process them now.
Right.
So we're preparing that and bringing it forward. We don't have any proposed language for minimum unit size. We just are looking at setbacks and lot sizes at this time.
That's become a concern of mine recently. I mean, we've done, I think, 4 or 5 of the small lot subdivisions, and they've all got 2-story units around 2,000 square feet. And I'm thinking of the single family or the single stories that are in 1,200 to 1,500 square feet. That doesn't seem to have been addressed in the market and the applications we're getting. So I was just curious if there was any thoughts about that.
So the thought would be that we might limit it to single-story homes in some cases, or 1,200 square feet versus a two-story, 2,000 square foot home.
Okay, all right.
So
all
we'll,
right.
we'll look at that. I'm not sure we can, but we'll look at it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions of staff? Commissioner Grimm?
Didn't really have a question. I just was driving South Santa Fe not very long ago. As you come up out of town, you're heading east, and we approved a project. I think it was an apartment project.
South Santa Fe Heights, near Mar Vista.
I wasn't going to name it, but
Yeah.
a
No,
couple.
we got a couple emails from Commissioner Looney about it.
Yeah, I was, and I think I voted for it. I'm pretty disappointed with what.
So
is going
just to clarify with everyone, this developer's gone a little rogue on us. We have approved construction drawings for what was approved by the commission, and they match what was approved by the commission. But unfortunately, the contractor that's building the project has not completely complied with the construction drawings. So Commissioner Looney brought this to our attention a couple weeks ago. We've notified the developer. Just today, we had a discussion with the architect and the developer to advise them that the final product has to match what was approved, or they're not going to get their occupancy. So we'll keep an eye on it. But what they've done is really non-traditional with respect to what still needs to happen in the way of construction process. So they're going to have to go back and spend some money and time and fix it.
All right. Commissioner Garrison?
Yes, Mr. Conley, what's the update on the traffic circle? I understand that's gone out to bid.
Yeah,
Is
the
that
council
correct?
awarded the bid to PAL Construction, which is the same contractor that's building our park on Palo Vista. And we hope to have it done in the first quarter of next year. Our city attorney's telling me it's the end of the year, but I know it's not going to happen by the end of the year.
The contract we put out is set at the end of the year.
No, we'll see, but it's gotten awarded. We did get the right of way from the property owner. So we're hoping to start construction here in the next month. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? All right, if there's nothing else, then we stand adjourned till December 7th. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah. So John, it's not likely we'll have a second December meeting, right? Just the one on the 7th.
They haven't done that.
Oh, really? Great.
Yeah, 21st.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Walt.